Welcome to HerVoice podcast, the empowering space where women from all walks of life are heard, valued, and celebrated. This is a safe place for authentic expression, candid conversations, and inspiring stories that uplift and empower. Together, we're building a community that champions the power, purpose, and impact of women's voices. So lean in and listen closely, because this is HerVoice podcast with your host, Pastor Yvette Steele.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to HerVoice podcast. I am your host, Pastor Yvette Steele. Thank you for joining us again on our Grief Journey podcast that we're hosting. And today's Grief Journey podcast is centered around sibling loss. We're holding space for those who have lost a sibling, someone who shared, our childhood memories, our family stories, our laughter, and often was our first friend, our first friendship. Sibling loss is a grief that can feel unseen, yet it runs deep and lifelong. Today, we're speaking with honesty, compassion, and grace, creating room for stories, tears, reflection, and hope. Whenever you are in your journey, or wherever you are in your journey, your grief matters, your love matters, and your healing at your own pace matters too. I'm excited to have Sharray joining us today. And let me just say, Minister Sharray Clarke joining us today. She's the founder of Diabetic Barbie, a support group created in honor of her late sister, Shapir. Did I pronounce that correctly? Shapri Washington. And the group is to uplift and bring hope and awareness to women living with diabetes. Sharray also serves as a board member on Jade Ministries and Need for Bridges. She recently hosted her first women's conference, Healing Heart, which I was honored to be a part of in California. And she's also a minister focused on faith, restoration, and emotional wellness. Welcome, Sharray. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's truly an honor to have you joining us. And I know this is a very personal subject for you because you lost your sister. And I thank you for taking the time out to, to share with us your journey, your faith in this journey, what God has done for you in this journey, and to also encourage others who are in this journey. And it's also going to be an encouragement to those who are going to experience this. If we're honest, like we are here, we're very transparent. At some point in time, some of us are going to experience sibling loss. I heard someone say that, depending upon how many siblings you are, even if it's just two, one person is going to watch every sibling transition. And so that in itself speaks volumes of, the grief that a sibling can have that is not often talked about. We talk about losing spouses and parents and things like that, even children, but you don't hear too many people talk about the process or the journey of grief when losing a sibling. So before we get into, a deeper conversation about it, tell us a little bit about your sister. Anything you would like to share? How long has it been since, you've lost her, or anything of that nature pertaining to your sister?
Well, thank you. Before I start, I want to say thank you for having me. Like you said, sibling loss seems like a forgotten journey, honestly. Um, well, it will be 5 years on June 27th of this year that my sister passed away. And wow. Wow, this is my first time actually speaking about this, honestly.
Wow.
I talked about it in segments, but to have a full conversation about it, this is my first time doing so bear with me.
Safe place.
Yeah. So it'll be 5 years this year, which I still cannot believe that it's been almost 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
My sister and I they're like literally night and day. We are two complete different people,
Mhm.
as all
Mhm.
siblings are. But yeah, we were two different people. But the love that we shared um, was it was felt, it was seen, it was real, it was
Mhm.
tangible. Um, like I remember growing up because I grew up in the foster care system. I went to 10 different foster homes, and my
Mhm.
sister went to 3 foster homes. But to back up a little bit, I actually like my first prayer in my whole life was God give me a sister, like give me a baby
Oh.
sister. And God gave me a baby sister. How she came about, that's my parents. That's her parents, business.
Mhm.
But yeah, he gave me what I asked for, and it
Mhm.
was, quite the journey. I honestly think that God used my sister as a gift to me, and two, for me to continue on my journey in the foster care
Mhm.
system, because without her, I don't think I would have survived, honestly. Um, so growing up, I was, although we went through a lot, we went through many journeys in the foster care system, being adopted as adults. But that love and that core was always there,
Mhm.
even into the time that she passed
Mhm.
away. Like I really believe that God used like 12 years of not having the best relationship, and he like
Mhm.
literally changed it in like 3 weeks before she passed, where we were just laughing, joking, having.
Mm.
And I hadn't seen that in a very long time due to certain things that happened
Mhm.
in my life and in her life, because she was a teenager at the time.
Mhm.
And so, that's a whole nother journey for a teenager to go through
Mhm.
certain things. Um,
Right.
and, now I have her son, which I've always
Mhm.
had, my nephew, but I have full guardianship and custody of him. And
Mhm.
having him is like having her again times 10, because he got a lot of energy, but he is so much like his mother. It's a blessing. It's a lot, but it's a blessing, and
Right.
I'm very grateful for that. Yeah.
So, first of all, let me commend you because not only did you lose a sibling, you took on the role of a full-time parent of your nephew, even though you were, active in his life. Being an aunt and being active and now becoming a full-time parent and operating in that role are two completely different things, as you well
Mhm.
you're aware of. Um, so, watching you step into that role of parenthood, I just want to give you, your flowers and say I'm proud of you. And to watch what God is doing in your life as you have taken on that responsibility um, for your nephew, which I know many have done, and losing the siblings, but there are also some who have not done it. Um, or don't want that responsibility. So for you to, step up and step in that role, um, you know, that was, I commend you for that. I
Thank
commend
you.
you for that. One of the things I wanted to, um, just ask you is how did losing your sister change your sense of identity, or your role within your family? Because we always equate ourselves, I have a sister, or I'm a sister, I'm a big sister, I have a little sister. And now that's not there. So
Mm.
how did that change, your sense of identity, not just within yourself, but maybe within your family?
Ooh, that is a loaded question. Um, because for it's Sheree and Shapri, Sheree and Shapri, Sheree and Shapri. That's how I lived my whole existence, right? And for me, that was because I lived my existence as a big sister, and a mother role too, because my our birth mother she was on drugs, right? And so, like I said, we went to different foster homes, getting adopted. I still had this huge responsibility that I took
Mhm.
upon myself at times to make sure my sister did what she needed to do, or to make sure I was doing what I was supposed to do so I could be, a great role model. And so when she passed away, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I was, honestly. Um, and I'm still trying, if I'm honest, I'm still trying to figure that out. Because it's only been almost 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in my family, I am like the go-to person. That's
Okay.
just who I am. I've always been that in now that I thought about it, in every home, it was always me,
Mm-hmm.
Sherray, Sherray, Sherray. Sherray can do this, Sherray can do that. And then going back, being adopted by older parents, there's this certain responsibility that
Ah,
they also
yes.
bestowed upon me because they're
Mm-hmm.
older, and then I have this sibling.
Right.
So, yeah, I didn't know who I was, and for a long time, I couldn't even see like siblings together. Like how you see little things on Facebook
Yes.
or
Yeah.
pictures.
Yeah.
I could not even look at that, especially
I
if
can
they were like a
understand
little.
that.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do it for quite some time. I think maybe last year I was just comfortable, like, okay, I can watch a sibling, or I won't cry when I see two siblings walking down the street, or things of that
Mm-hmm.
nature. And I just had to figure out, okay, who is Sherray? Um, what is Sherray capable of outside of the roles that she played? Because in addition to being a sister, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend. I'm a business owner, all these
Right.
different things. And so it's like, okay, what is Sherray's purpose? And so I'm still on that journey. Um,
Because we
honestly,
all are on some type of journey. We all are.
yeah, yeah. And
And
so,
I can understand that when you lose someone, especially if, part of your identity is attached to that person, when that part is gone, it's like, okay, what happens to that space? What happens to that space? Or when, you see someone, it's like, hey, Sheree, how are you? How your sister doing? And someone who may not know, that hits you because then it takes you back, to the fact that, okay, she's no longer here. Um, Going to places that you all used to go together, and realizing that, wow, um, she's not here. And that's with any loss, when you go somewhere that's familiar and you realize the person's no longer there that was there with you. It takes time. It takes time. And I like how you said, it's been 5 years, and some people may feel as though 5 years is a long time. Well, as we say here, you know everybody's journey is different. You can't put a time limit on grief, and you can't tell a person how to grieve. And so, the fact that you are taking your time and you're allowing your grief journey to play itself out and to go through what you need to go through, I commend you for continuing that journey. What I wanted to also talk about is, I know that you've lost a parent. So, what makes sibling grief, feel different from another loss or losing a parent? What do you how can you correlate the difference between, a sibling loss and losing a parent? Because like I said, we focus a lot on, losing a parent, losing spouses, but sibling grief is often, overlooked. So what would you say, is the difference, if you can describe to someone,
hmm.
going through?
Ooh, well, for me, I lost both my birth mother and my adopted mother within a year apart. So there was no time for me to grieve, I feel like, because my mother passed, and then I had to take on responsibility of doing things with my biological mother, and then my adopted mother passed, and then I had to take on another responsibility of taking care of my dad, making sure the finances were good. And with my sister, and that it literally like knocked the wind out of me. Like
Mhm.
I honestly cannot even describe the pain, because the pain is different from losing my mother's than it is losing my sister.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm still trying to figure out how to really describe that, but it's different. The pain hurts
Mhm.
more. Yes, I miss my mother's and every single
Mm-hmm.
day. But my sister, and then you think about it, like I didn't think my sister was gonna pass away at 25 years old, right? Like you just don't think that. And that's when she went to the hospital, nobody thought, oh, she's not gonna make it, you know. And so the difference
Yeah.
in the pain for me is that it literally stopped me. Like, and I had responsibility of my nephew. I was getting married, all these different things. I was going to law school, all these things. Yet I couldn't figure out how to, like, push forward. It just stopped me to the point where at times I didn't even want to be alive. Like I had that survivor's guilt, and I didn't have that with with my mother's, but with my sister, it's like, oh, because she has a child. I don't have any children yet. And so I wasn't thinking like, oh no. And I felt I lived my life. My life have been, I lived it to the fullness.
Right.
And I was like, I wish I could give her that chance because, she's
So how did you navigate feeling that guilt or the what ifs or the unfinished conversations? I mean, how did you navigate, or rather, how are you navigating? Because I'm sure you're still navigating it to some degree.
Oh, of course. Like I said, I think about her in every split second of the day. Like, there's not a moment or a day that goes by that I don't think about her. Or I see things like, oh, I wish she was here. We could do this. Or, her
Right.
son is growing up beautifully. And I'm like, and I used to text her and, send her pictures when she was in the hospital and stuff like that. Or, at home not feeling well. I'm like, oh, he did this today. And, and I can't not do those things anymore. And so how I'm navigating is one, a lot of prayer, a lot of prayer. Therapy is helping, being open and just talking about her, making sure I keep that connection with my nephew alive with his mother, doing certain things to make sure that he also stays connected to her because he doesn't really remember her
Right.
when she was well. He only remembers when she was sick. So it
Mm.
was. I think I showed him a video. He was like, "Who's that?" I was like, "Oh, that's your mom." He was like, "Oh, wow,"
Oh.
So he doesn't remember certain things. So I try to keep her alive, not only for myself but for him too. And those unfinished conversations, like I said, 3 weeks before she passed was like the best time we spent
Mhm.
in so long. We were laughing, joking, just talking, and that's
Right.
something that I wish that I still had.
Mhm.
And I haven't really gotten to that point where I could be like, oh, I'm completely over that because you don't really get
Yeah,
over it.
that's
Um,
right.
and then like there's special moments in my life. Like I got married. I went to law school, almost done. I'm doing things that I wish I can share with her and
With
I
her.
can't.
Yeah.
I do have her
Yeah.
picture with me, like I take it everywhere I go. Like when I travel, I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, look at this,
Mhm. Mhm.
But I mean, that's all I can do, and that's hard because again,
I
she's
asked that question because, experiencing grief myself and many other people that experience it, I find it comforting. We talk about those unfinished conversations. Um, and some people may find this, find it crazy. And some people are so deep spiritually that they can't even understand what's being said here. But, I find that still having those conversations help. Still sharing those things, help.
yeah,
Um, when I say, you know, have conversations, I mean, there are things that I may experience that I may, call out my husband's name, and, and I call nicknamed, I called him Bay. And I would say, well, Babe, this happened today, or Babe, why I can't believe this happened, or, I would say it, or even say something, to my dad, just having that conversation, I found helped me, bring me some sense of comfort. And on top of prayer, and on top of taking my time and letting God, do what he needs to do and needed to do in me to help heal me along the journey, that was part of my healing.
yeah,
I find that is part of the healing. So, I tend to encourage individuals, or even, sometimes write it down, write a letter of some things, a conversation of some things you wanted to share that you didn't get an opportunity to share. So I asked that, question of you because I'm sure, there are many that need to hear those words, that need to be encouraged that it's okay to do that. It's okay to have that conversation. It's okay to share. No, you're not crazy. People may, oh, you're crazy for doing that. No, you're not. You're not crazy at all. If it's part of helping you heal, if it's a part of helping you, hold on to the good memories. And, because we have to be, mindful not to let the grief overpower, those good memories, because we can get lost, in the grief. And so that's a way of, not getting lost in the grief. And I truly know about getting lost, in the grief of only for the grace and the mercy of God. I thank Him. That's why I'm able to sit here today. Let me ask you, how did your family relationships shift, after your siblings' passing, or did they shift?
Well, before I answer that, I just thought about this because my sister has a Facebook page and I made it a legacy page. And so I still
Okay.
literally I post all type of stuff on there and I tell her like, oh, this happened. This happened. So it's like I'm
Okay.
texting her, like I'm writing her. So if anybody has a legacy page, you need help to figure out how to navigate that, definitely
Yeah,
contact me. I can
that's
help you
good.
And so I think that's another way to, help keep interactions. And then other people too, they can, contribute as well. How did my relationships change? Um,
Or did they? And not just with family, like even I would say friends. On one of my last podcast segment, we talked about spousal grief, how we've had relationships with individuals, and then when we lost our spouse, all of a sudden we no longer had those relationships with them anymore, and not just people who we looked at as being friends, but also family relationships shifted and dwindled off in some cases. So that's what I'm asking. Did you have to deal with any of that? How did it affect you? What can you share about that, if that took place?
I would say I more so dealt with that with my mother's passing than I did with my sister.
Okay. Okay.
Because of a lot of, different things in our family.
Mhm.
So with her, it was more so the friends. And actually what happened with her friends, some of them, is that we have a more stronger, bond. Like
Okay.
they're very supportive of everything that I do, when it relates to my sister or, the nonprofit that I started and things of that nature. And then sometimes with Jaden, like some of them just call and say, hey, how is he doing? What does he need and things of that nature. So that's kind of the bond
No,
that we
that's awesome. That's awesome. And that's what we hope would happen, that, the support will remain, or the support will even grow, after losing someone. It's hard enough losing someone, and then, losing other individuals along the way because that person is no longer here. So, I think that's amazing. How did you, and I know this is probably like a strange um, question to ask, but because you are a sister, you were her sister, and your relationship, is different. But did you feel pressure to be strong, for your parents? Well, your mom was already, had transitioned, but your dad was still here. Did you feel pressure to be strong, for your dad, to where it hindered your grieving process or your healing?
Yes, I did. Because again, you take on roles and things that if you got to know that it's okay to cry, it's okay to release, it's okay to say, hey, I can't handle this right now because I'm going through this. And so I did feel this, but not really from my dad, I want more so from my nephew. Because I was not only was I
Okay.
trying to navigate my grief, I was trying to navigate his
Hmm.
grief as well. Like, okay, because he was 6 when she passed away. So now
Hmm.
he's 10, so he has a different understanding
Mm.
now. Like he understands more than he did when he was 6. And so I was so focused on, not letting this and that happen that I missed times where I should have been taking that time for myself. Um, and for my father as well, like I'm his only child left, right? And so he already lost his wife, and now he has to deal with losing his child. And so even in that sense, there was this guilt of how do I make our relationship not appear like Shapree's, but how do we make it? Because I didn't even know. Like, I'm like, okay, what's our relationship now? Like, and I can't fill that void for him, and I can't do the same for my nephew either. Like, I just have to be God placed me in their lives to be, especially for Jaden to nurture, and because I can't replace his mother, but God put her and me on earth to do something to make sure, navigate into God. And for my dad, as well, because he's 83 almost now. And so, yeah. But that pressure that I put on myself was my own, it was my own pressure. But I
So
did.
what would your advice be to someone who is navigating what you navigated, or they're in the space that you were in? Say they lost a sibling, they're the only sibling left, and what would your advice be to them when it comes to them, having that relationship with their parent now that the other sibling is gone? Because I can imagine that, as a parent, that's hard losing a child. And of course, one child can never replace another child, but it is a void there. And even though because I have children, and even though my love for them is the same across the board, I have different relationships with each child. And so, one child cannot fill the void of another child, but I can imagine, a child possibly trying to fill that void, so that the parent won't hurt, or, feel an emptiness. What would your advice be to someone that's in that position?
My advice would be one, do not try to recreate what that other sibling had with that parent, because that is setting yourself up for failure. I tried that, been there, done that. You just have to figure out how to navigate. Because it's all navigating. It's all growing and just learning how to just be. And for me and my dad now, we like take walks. That's something him and my sister didn't do. So I'm just doing stuff that him and my sister did not do to try and grow and navigate that relationship, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And to take your time, like literally take your time. There's no rush into anything. Because grief is a lifelong process. As long as we're breathing, we're gonna be in this grief journey. And each year different things come up. Like this is almost year 5. And I just now got to the place where I'm like, okay, I'm Sharray and not Shapree. My dad is my dad.
Right.
My nephew is my nephew, and this is who I am. I'm just coming into this. So just take your time. And try different things. I would say
Yeah,
that's my advice. Yeah.
that's good. And you know, um, to add on to that, you know, being a parent, like I said, I'm not a parent who's lost a child, thank the Lord. But being a parent, I can only imagine you're going to have your moments, where that solitude is something that you need. In other words, don't take it personal if your parent, is not, uh, is not connecting with you in that moment, or responding to what you're doing in that moment, because they're grieving too, and their loss is a different type of loss. I mean, both have lost, but their loss is a different type of loss. But to try not to take it on yourself personally, because the other sibling's not here, it's like, oh well, do I not mean as much to them because they're grieving them, or it's taking them a long time to get over that sibling. To try to understand that grief looks different on everybody, and so you have to allow grace,
Yeah.
to each other, going through that process. Thank you for sharing that,
You're
because
welcome.
I can only imagine, finding that, that new normal. It's a new normal now. That's what I like to say. It's a new normal. Things aren't the way they used to be. It's a completely new normal. Even the relationship you have is new, because the relationship you had was a relationship that you had with another sibling and your father, and he had to split that time and those things, and now it's just you. So that relationship itself is a new relationship for both of you all. So I like to say it's a new normal, we're navigating this new normal of grief, and that takes time, and people like to rush that time, and that's why we have this platform here to encourage individuals to allow God to be a part of that journey, because he's the most important thing in that journey. That's where your healing is going to come from. But allow whatever time God is gracing us with on this journey to heal, for it to be. Don't rush it. Don't let anybody rush you. Don't let anybody pressure you into being a certain way or acting a certain way. And I like to say sometimes we take 2 or 3 steps ahead, and then we wake up and was like, whoa, we're back 2 or 3 steps. I thought I was 2 or 3 steps ahead. And sometimes we're in the negative now. And it's okay. It's okay. Just take that moment, breathe, push through that day, and then step into the next one. And that's where I think a lot of times, people on the outside of grief miss the mark by not extending that grace. It's hard enough for us to extend it to ourselves. But then when you're not getting that grace from others, it can make it even harder. So I see you wearing your shirts. I do want to ask, I know that's, how you honor her as well, but others may not know. So the question would be, how do you honor remembering your sibling today?
Oh, outside of carrying her picture everywhere I go. So I was able to found this nonprofit called Diabetic Barbie. Diabetic Barbie is actually a clothing line that she started like a month before she passed away.
Mm.
And
Wow.
yeah,
What a blessing. It's
yeah,
okay.
as a
Yeah.
as a clothing line. And I think I want to say year 2. It's crazy how like you try to remember the
Mhm.
years. It's 5 years, but
Mhm.
it's weird. But I think it was around year 2.5. I was at work and I literally just, we call it downloads from God. Like I got this idea
Mhm.
to turn Diabetic Barbie into a support group, because I had remembered at the time that my sister and I would like share our um, diabetic reading numbers with one another. Like I would text her and say, "Hey,
Mhm.
what's your numbers today?" And she would send me a picture.
Mhm.
Um, and so I created Diabetic Barbie as a support group, and that it honors not only her legacy and her memory, but it brings hope and awareness to other women who've been diagnosed with diabetes. Because having diabetes myself, I know when you get diagnosed, it's scary. It's scary. It's like, oh, and for me, because my mother also had diabetes and she passed away from complications of diabetes, it 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 took me a while to process it. Like I was in denial for like a month and a half, where I didn't take no
Mhm.
medicine, right? Because I was like, oh, I don't got that. I can't, And so
Right.
with that, especially being African American, a younger woman, and all those things,
Mhm.
it's hard to navigate, especially because I feel like in some healthcare settings, there is no place to go to where you see anybody like yourself. Not even just being
Mhm.
African American, but being a younger woman in general. When I went to classes, it was always older people, because everybody, oh, it's an older
Mhm.
person's disease. It's a person, it's a person who's obese
Mhm.
or whatever the case may be, and that's not the case at all. And
Mhm.
so this is how I honor her, and
Mhm.
I am more than happy to honor her in this way. Like,
And that's beautiful. That, because not only are you honoring her, but you're also helping others. You're getting information out there to others. You're making others aware, of taking care of themselves, getting their numbers, making them knowledgeable about, things that are available to them, and making things accessible to them. And so I think that's an honorable way and a wonderful way to honor your sister. I know that, she would be ecstatic to see how you move forward with it. And, not only are you rocking, the wear, but you're bringing awareness. And so, especially, people don't realize how it affects younger people. A lot of people equate, diabetes with older people,
Yeah.
not realizing that, we have children too who are diabetics. And so you're also bringing awareness to that while keeping her memory in the forefront. And that's also something that her son, can carry on that legacy to carry it on. So I think that's amazing what you're doing. I know that, she's, proud of you and your mom, as we all are, for
Yeah.
um, for what you're doing. And so also I wanted to ask you, um, is there something that you do now because of your sibling that you didn't do before? Not talking about, the diabetes or the clothing line or anything like that. Is there anything that you do now because of her that you didn't do before? Was there something that she wanted you to try, a hobby or anything that now you say, you know what, let me go do it. I'm going to try this. Or now let me, go out and experience these things. Is there anything that you do now that you didn't do before because of her?
Yeah. So I find myself, I know this is crazy, but I find myself wearing a lot of shades of pink because pink was her
Mhm,
favorite color. I did not like pink. Like yellow was my favorite
mhm.
color. But
Okay.
I I wear all type of shades of pink now. Um, yeah, I wear shades of pink. I try different foods because she was like a foodie. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go try this food. I do the
I
things
love it.
that I said we would do together. I do them
Mhm,
with myself, or I take Jaden or whatever. She was really like a fan. Like I got these Hello Kitty earrings on because she
mhm,
loved Hello Kitty. And so
mhm,
every time I see
mhm.
something Hello Kitty, I would, buy it. Or I'm turning into like a little sneaker person because I love shoes. So
She
I'm like,
loves
okay, I'm gonna
sneakers.
try these shoes. Jaden likes sneakers too. So yeah, so that's kind of what I've been doing.
Yeah. I love it because that's all a part of, keeping her memory,
Hmm.
keeping her memory alive. And believe it or not, it's encouraging someone else, in ways of keeping, their loved one, their sibling or their loved one, period, the memory alive. I love that. I love that. Shifting gears for a minute, to the faith side of things, what would you say, you know, was the biggest thing faith wise that got you through and that's still, getting you through your journey of healing, with your losing your sister?
Mm. Well, remember I said my first prayer was, God, give me a baby sister. He gave me one. My last prayer was, God, let your will be done. And
Mhm.
so I had to have enough trust and faith that God, answered my prayer and allowed her to, no longer, suffer
Mhm.
in the state that she was in pain. And so, yeah, that's all I can. I mean,
Yeah.
that's all we can do. It's just,
And it's not, I mean, it's easier said,
oh, yeah.
than done because, we say, Lord, let your perfect will be done, but that doesn't remove the sting.
Oh no.
It doesn't remove the pain. It doesn't remove the grief that we experience in that loss. And even in that, if we're honest, knowing that his perfect will was done, it doesn't mean that our faith doesn't waver sometimes. Our faith doesn't shake sometimes. Because although we want his perfect will to be done, we do have a desire
Of course.
that our will, of the person remaining, be it for our own selfish reasons, because we don't want to lose them. We want to, we don't want to be here, have them not hear their voice, talk to them, smell them, touch them, whatever. Um, that, it doesn't, that we don't go through challenges,
Of course.
accepting that. And I know for me, and I'm still on the journey, of course, trusting that God's perfect will was done, whether I understand it or not, because a lot of time things happen and we don't understand it, and we may not get an explanation of why it happened this way, and then we may get one that could be years later. But just holding on to faith and trusting that all things are working together for the good for those that love the Lord, that are called according to his purpose, that it's working together whether we understand it or not. And like you said about the suffering, the pain, that she's no longer in that.
Yeah.
And so even though we may hurt and we may grieve, that person's no longer, you
Yeah.
know, going through those things, because no one wants to see a loved one suffer.
Of course.
And so, I understand that. And so, um, I don't know how individuals make it through without standing on the word of God, without prayer, without faith,
Yeah.
keeping you in your right mind and allowing you to go forward and live day by day. Because like you said, grief is there. You learn to live in the grief. God heals those areas to where you aren't able to function in the grief, but you always miss the person. The memories are always there and you always miss the person. What are you taking from the loss of your sister and instilling in your nephew, for him to understand and to operate in that faith? Because as a child, being that young, trying to explain to them, loss, but at the same token, trying to explain to them and navigate them in faith, and that the love of Christ, even in the loss, there's still the love of Christ that's there. How are you navigating that?
I would say this. My nephew is very emotionally aware. Like it
Yes.
amazes me. Like I'm amazed because I went through a lot as a child, but what he's gone through in the past 4 years is like he's still joyful. He's still um he just has this joy that is just beautiful to see and witness. And for a while, he did have the question, why did God take my mommy away?
Mm.
And at one time, he actually told me, oh my gosh. One time, he actually told me, he was like, "Is the reason why mommy passed away because I was born?"
Mm.
Because when my sister got diabetes, she had gestational diabetes.
Mm.
And so he didn't understand there's different types of diabetes, there's
Right.
different ways to get it. And so we had to navigate through that. And now he understands, oh, there's different types of diabetes. So now he doesn't hold that in himself, like, oh, I'm the mistake. I shouldn't have been born type of thing. And then it was like, oh, why did she have to pass away so young? So we went through that part. We went through that, stage of it. And now with faith, like I said, he's very open to his feelings. I'm still amazed. Like he asks questions all the time about his mom. And he's been praying about his heart. He's like, I just wanna because at first he was like, my heart is broken. And I'm like, that's okay, your heart is gonna be broken. And he was like, you understand because you lost your mommies. And I was like, yes, I do understand. He was like, and so
Right.
we've gone to grief camp and different things like that. So he understands the process of grief now and where he is in the grieving and his process. And so in regards to faith, like I said, we've gone to counseling, going to therapy, because therapy and Jesus work. You need to do both
Amen.
of those work.
Say it again.
I don't understand
Yes.
therapy, Jesus.
Say that
They work
again. I don't
together,
know why
therapy
people
and
think that
prayer.
you can't do therapy and Jesus.
Yeah, that's why he put the doctors on the earth. He gave them the mindset to do these certain things. So it's just been a lot, like I said, just teaching him how to pray, in the sense that knowing that his conversation with God is just like his conversation with him and I, and just being open and honest. And then making sure he talks to whoever he needs to talk to get whatever out. Like I said, it was different when she first passed. He was like, "Oh, I saw my mommy in a dream, and she just gave her a hug, and she's better now." Then we started that journey, because as you get older, you understand different things. And now we're in this phase of sometimes he calls me mom or mom T, or sometimes he introduces me as his auntie or his mom. It just depends on how he feels, and I let him navigate through that. I'm learning because for a long time I was like, oh, don't call me mom. Because I didn't want to take that away from my sister. And it was like,
Right.
he needs to say that because that's how he's
Mm-hmm.
feeling. And so I just now
Right.
just open. I'm just open to it. So if he says it, I'm like, okay, I answer, and then we just go on. But I do
I
want to.
love that. Yeah, I love that, you know, because it's what he needed to help his growth, his healing. And I've heard him go back and forth. So I do know that he does, go back and forth. And that I love the fact that you were able to get to a place to be able to accept that that's not taking anything from your sister. You're showing him, and you are reminding him who his mother was. And so and the memory of her, so you're not taking anything from that, but you're allowing him the space to heal and utilize whatever tools he needs, if it's calling you mommy, auntie, whatever, to be able to heal. So I absolutely love that. I'm enjoying this because you know, me knowing you personally as well, seeing the journey from beginning to where you are now, I know that it's nobody but God that has kept you, that has strengthened you, that's still strengthening you, that's been, guiding you, and giving you the wisdom. Because again, you went to instant mom full time, and being a parent, is not an easy job. And but watching how God is navigating in your life, um with your nephew, at the same time you having to deal with losing a sibling and going through that grief and losing one so young and so fast, because it wasn't something that was long, it happened so fast. I'll never forget that. And then not only that, being there for your father, it's nobody but the grace of God, the love of God, the mercy of God, that has kept you, in the prayers that has kept you, and watching you, with your nonprofits and your businesses and the ministry, and all of that that's coming out of this, all of the purpose that's coming out of your pain, that has come out of your pain, that's going to come out of your pain. It's amazing. It still amazes me what God is capable of doing and who He is. And so, with that being said, um, the last thing I want to ask you or have you reflect on is, the legacy that you're going to, have, or rather, you leaving for your sibling. Of course, is the diabetic Bobby that you've established. But if you could say one thing to your sibling today, where you are today, what would you say to her?
Oh my goodness. I would say we made it. Um, yeah. There was
I
this
love that.
yeah. I would say because when she was a baby, 'cause she was like my baby doll. Or I call her my baby doll. And I would like sing to her in her crib. And we would just, sing to one another and just play. And I would always dream about how our life would be outside of the foster care system. Well, once we got adopted and those things.
Mhm.
And like I said before, everything that I did as a child up into adulthood was because God gave me the amazing gift to be a sister that really shaped who I was and how I navigated through life. And to
Mhm.
say like we made it is something that I was striving to do and to be, if that makes sense.
Yes,
So that's
yes, that
something that I would tell her. Um, you know, and I often looked at her journals because she had so many dreams, so many ambitions. She was so talented. She had this laugh that's like our mother's laugh that they shared, which was crazy, but it was such an affectionate laugh that I it was just beautiful. But I just saw sometimes I sit back and I read her journal and I read about all the different things she wanted to do and all the things. And I'm just like, wow. And so I know Diabetic Barbie is one. There's some other things on her list that I also want to
Mhm.
see come into fruition to continue that journey. And we made it, like her son that was born, he was born, he's growing up, like we crossed that hurdle, just things of that nature. So, yeah.
Okay. And before we get into, because I do want you to share a little bit more about, your ministry, your organization, things like that. But is there anything you want to share with us that we haven't covered, or you want to share with someone who may eventually listen to this on one of the many podcast platforms? Anything that we didn't talk about?
I do want to mention that there's importance in community, because I realized that sibling loss is that's a whole nother. It feels like a whole nother world, another journey, right? And so what I've done is also I've stayed connected to other siblings who also lost siblings, and so there's this sense of I'm not alone type of thing,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
um, in that. And so I would say join some type of support group, and share as much as you feel comfortable in sharing,
Mhm. Mhm.
or just sit back and observe, um, because there's a lot of people that I'm around that don't understand grief at all. Like grief is like, oh, you're still grieving. It's like, yeah, could have been grieving for a
Mhm.
long time. Like my sister's birthday, you know, it's hard to
Yeah.
navigate. She would have been 30 years old last year, and it's like, wow, she would have been 30. you know,
Yeah. Which is
um,
young.
which is young. Yeah, we're 6 years
Mhm.
apart, so I'm 36, and so yeah, I would say find someone or something to help you walk in this journey, because as the Bible says, God didn't make us to walk alone, right? And even in grief, He did not make us to walk alone either. And so just find your community, find your sense of purpose, and it's okay,
Mhm.
because for a long time, like I had that survivor's guilt. I didn't see I couldn't see, like, how can I be happy? Like, am I supposed to be happy? Am I supposed to
Mhm.
do this? Am I supposed to do that? And it's
Mhm.
okay to be happy. It's okay
Yeah. To
to
live.
to live. You know,
Yeah.
it's okay to
Okay.
live. Hmm.
Yeah. And that's, I think in any form of grief, sometimes that's the hardest thing.
Hmm.
That it's okay to live. It's okay to keep going. It's okay to move forward. You don't have to stay stuck in that one spot. And once we conquer that, that's a huge step. That's a huge step for us. So yes, I believe that community support and all of that is so important. So tell us, how individuals can connect with Diabetic Barbie. Tell us about your other ministries and Need for Bridges nonprofit and all of that, and how individuals can also reach you if necessary.
All right. So I have an
Because many don't know you're in California.
Oh yes, I am in California on the West Coast. I'm in California. Um, my nonprofit is based in Los Angeles, because that's the hub. That's the hub of
Mhm.
my nonprofit. It's called Diabetic Barbie on Instagram. Diabetic Barbie underscore 100. The 100 is because when you get 100, we call it a unicorn. That's like a perfect number. So
Okay.
Diabetic Barbie underscore 100. Also be reached at S Clarke, so SCLARKE at diabeticbarbie.org. I have our first in-person support group is going to be on February 22nd of this month on a Sunday. Thank you, at 3 p.m. at Brew Life. I'll be posting more about that on my page if you follow me. Facebook is just Diabetic Barbie. If you type that
Mhm.
in. Um, I'm also a part of Jade Ministries, so make sure you subscribe
Yes,
to this
thank you.
podcast, Her Voice. Subscribe to Jade Ministries, and thank you, Pastor Yvette. Need for Bridges is actually my husband's nonprofit that I'm a part of. It's a mentorship program for boys ages 9 to 17 and then 18 to 24, where we do mentorship, life skills, career exploration, and education. And at that Instagram, I think is Need for Bridges 16, and then Facebook is Need for Bridges. If you want to follow
Okay.
those social media sites. Yeah.
Okay. And don't forget, she launched Healing Hearts, which was amazing,
Yes.
in California. And like I said, I had the privilege of flying out to the West Coast and being a part of it, along with some other wonderful anointed women. And we're looking forward to God expanding that and not only having it in California, but bringing it to other locations as well. Sharray, thank you so much. First of all, thank you for your transparency. Thank you for opening up yourself to share your journey and your story and where you are to encourage others. You know, when we share our pain and how God brought us through it, we share the gift of the gospel. It doesn't have to be hard, you know. You don't have to be a theologian or a scholar. All you have to do is be a willing vessel, to share God, what God has done in your life. And we all have experienced pain, but not everyone knows the gift of Jesus Christ who carries us through it. So, that's why we always equate back to the faith and what God has done for us in our journey and still doing for us in our journey of grief. So as we close today's conversation, we honor that love that never ends, even in loss. Grief doesn't mean forgetting it. It means carrying love forward in a new way. Healing is not a race, and you don't have to walk this journey alone. Thank you for allowing us to be in your space. Thank you again, Minister Sharray. If any of you were encouraged by this podcast, please like, subscribe, support, and share. Until next time, may you continue to be encouraged and be an encouragement to others. Again, thank you, Minister Sharray.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us on Her Voice podcast. Remember, your voice matters, your story has power, and you are never alone on this journey. If today's episode encouraged you, share it with someone who needs it. And be sure to subscribe for more conversations that uplift and empower. Until next time, be encouraged and keep using your voice. This is Her Voice podcast.